So this has been one of those projects that's kind of been on my list for some time, really. I can't remember when I first started learning about these, but I always thought they were pretty cool. Basically, they were long knives, and well, as the name actually implies, messer translates to knife in English, but they were swords. So that's an interesting thing. A few variations of these. This one I'm building is referred to as or generally referred to as the Lungsmesser. Hopefully I pronounced that right. If I remember correctly, it translates to not war knife. That's Kriegsmesser. It translates to long knife in English. Basically, they were like civilian self-defense type swords, as compared to like the Kriegsmesser, which were meant for being carried to war. So these were usually shorter, kind of single-edged blades, very similar to a falchion, which I made one of those a long time ago, and I kind of want to make another one, just because I've increased in experience since then. I think I can do it a lot better. So I decided to make this out of just a piece of 5160 steel, old leaf spring if you can't tell. This seems a bit shorter than I want, but again, once you shape it and the fact that this is really thick and messers are generally thinner blades, I think it'll work pretty well. So I'm going to throw this in the forge and start hammering. Okay, now that I have this nicely forged out, I already kind of cut the shoulders where the tang goes, and then I'm going to cut that off just a bit. Just a little bit of head start, iron grinder, nothing special. So what I was originally going to do, or, well, I guess I decided to do what I was originally going to do, but I've kind of bounced back and forth between wanting to leave it this rough texture or actually grind it flat. I went back and forth a lot because, well, to be honest, I kind of like both, depending on the situation. And for swords, I usually don't leave them rough unless it's supposed to look rough. And these swords usually weren't. Well, I guess they might have been. I'm not really sure. I'm not a historian. But I kind of decided I think I'm going to leave it rough because I've gotten to where I really don't leave dents and stuff, you know, avoid the bevels, which are going to be ground out anyway. But there really isn't any dents in it. So, you know, you really can't see that it's obviously hammered out. I mean, there's a few little small spots here and there, but nothing too major. And the edge, of course, will be ground because it needs to be sharp. So I think that's what I'm going to do instead. I think that'll look kind of cool. Give it a nice handle, you know, leave it maybe rough forged or etched or something where it's dark. Then maybe handles like some sort of like oak with ebony, you know, look really dark. I think it'll look really cool when it's done. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind the edge to where it's, you know, not all wobbly. And then, of course, put in the bevels, grind that to where it's not just a solid line and more of a, I don't know what you would call that, but of course, grind this the way I want it as well. So I'm going to do a lot of grinding, then take a belt sander and, of course, clean up the edge and some of my other edges. And then we should be ready for heat treat. Okay, I have the sword ground out, mostly do I want it. A little bit of work to do on the handle, but I kind of have to do that as I work, maybe even after it's hardened. But before I go and harden the blade like I usually would, I need to make a guard for it. Since this handle, I'm going to forge it instead of trying to cut out something, since it's going to be a sword, I need a little bigger guard. So I decided it's probably better to do it before heat treat, so if I have to, you know, straighten out something, it's a lot easier to do. So for the guard, I chose... this is just like 1 inch by 1/2 inch steel. I'm gonna cut myself off a chunk, forge down both ends, and hot cut slot through it to put my tang. Usually I would just drill a couple holes, take an angle grinder, put it in, but 3/16 flat bar is a lot different than 1/2 inch. So I think it's gonna be chiseled and then just hammer this through hot. With something this wide, I think it's gonna be a lot easier to do. Don't drop that. I also want to say, like, I was really debating on whether I wanted to polish this out or not, like have the whole thing ground down like I did here. And I didn't really know which one to do. I kind of like the look of both. Had it been just, you know, a project for me, just for fun, I would have definitely left it this way. But I'm actually making this as a gift for my cousin. And there are very few people in the world that I actually care if I impress or not, and he is one of them. So I kind of want to make sure I did it right. But I kind of like the way a lot of them look, where you have the forged blade and you have this polished out. And as long as you kind of have a nice transition between the two, it looks really nice. So once I get it all hardened and stuff, I'll have it polished out. Right now it's just kind of rough ground out because it's, you know, once you throw it back in the forge, polishing it's kind of, goes away. So I'm gonna forge my guard and then heat treat this. Okay, so I have the sword guard made. Did a lot of grinding on that, bit of welding. Not historical, but in history they didn't have MIG welders, so that's what I used. I think it looks pretty good. I just want to throw on the forge, heat cycle it a few times, make it look rough like the blade. Still have to polish out the blade after tempering, but I'll get to that. Then what I'm gonna do, once I get that done, is forge some sort of pommel for it. Nothing fancy, just kind of a small piece to sit on here. I'll probably, slot cut out for the tang, just have it sit out just a little bit, enough to kind of stop your hand from going down. And then I'll put 2 wood scales on either side. And then of course sharpen it. Okay, so for the last part of the handle, I already have some 3/16 holes drilled in. One hole's drilled in the pommel with a pin through it, just holding everything in place. I have these nice oak scales that I'm going to use. I decided to use oak instead of hickory because I think oak's going to stain really nice, give an ebony wood stain to look really cool with the kind of rough finish of the whole thing. So with that, I'm just going to take a hand drill, drill out my holes, then put JB Weld on both sides, and put these brass pins through it to hold it all together. Okay, now that I have everything epoxied together, all I basically have left to do is shape it, and then of course give it a nice wood stain. I think I decided to go with a nice ebony. I haven't done that in a while, but I think with the blade, I think that dark color will look really nice. So what I'm gonna start with is just get a Farrier's rasp, clean up this as much as I can, then go to the belt sander, finish it up, and then of course hand sand it to where it's smooth. Should be fairly simple. Let's get started.